So this is the fourth day of a conference. So the attention goes a little bit down. It's the third day of the technical session. So you need a speaker that is going to revive you. And it's my pleasure to introduce Mauro Barni, Professor Mauro Barni from University of Siena. You have seen that he received also a fellowship or an award. This year it's not the only award he has received. He is a very well-known person in the signal processing community. He has been extremely active in multimedia forensics, initially, I would say, on watermarking technology, which are rising up again because of the AI Act. Mauro has led a lot of European projects, a lot of national projects, and he's going to talk to us about a difficult topic, which is trusted pixels, and I will let him read for you the entire title. I think trusted pixel is a nice initial icon. So Mauro, thank you very much, and we'll all listen to you carefully in these.
Ok. Come? Vedo se riesco. So, welcome everybody here. And first of all, I have to thank, of course, the organizers for inviting me here and having an excuse to come in such a wonderful place and spend these very nice 3 days. I also thank everybody for being here and prefer listening to me rather than going in the sun and enjoying the beach, which I don't know if it is a good choice, in fact. But I'll do my best not to, to let you, change your mind. So what am I going to talk about today? So I will talk about trusted pixels. So we'll talk about image authentication. And rather than, giving you a state of the art, what I'm doing, and some recent results, I will mostly share with you my ideas about what authenticating images mean. Because we always say, of course, there's a lot of AI images around. We want to distinguish real images. What is a real image? I don't know. Distinguish real images from fake images. So, while this seems to be an obvious task, it's not obvious at all. So I've been thinking a lot about it. And then I came out with some ideas that I want to share with you. So we'll see at the end if you agree with me. But I think that framing the problem better is a first step towards finding solutions, because we will ask the right questions and maybe we will find the right answers. Good? Okay, so, interesting. Does this go? Okay, no? It moves here, but it doesn't move there. That's interesting. It worked before. Sì, non va. Non va. Andava prima. Perché qui cambia. No, non va. No, non si muove. Credo che lo già fa. Ora va. Okay, so that's the idea. So first question, can we trust what we see? Of course we can. I see all these people in front of me and I have no doubt that what I see is true. No problem. But what about images? Can we trust images? images. What are images? Images, pictures, illustrations. So according to Oxford Dictionary, these are paintings, drawings, photographs, or any other visual representation on a surface. So then the question is, can we trust images? What does this mean, trusting images? So, trying to answer this question, I will take a semiotic view, so a field that has been studying the meaning of text, images, speech, and everything. So I will use this view to try to understand what means trusting an image. So first of all, in semiotics, a classical point of view is to distinguish between three classes of images. So the first kind of images are indexical images. An indexical image, as written there, is images that point or indicate an object through a direct connection or trace in a cause and effect way. So indexical images are not just a depiction of what is written there, but they are a direct trace and evidence of the existence of what they show. So indexical images. Then we have iconic images, icons. In this case, there is no a direct relationship, a cause and effect relationship between the object there and what there is in the image, but they represent objects through similarity or resemblance. This is a case of portraits painted by painters, like Canaletto here, or even drawings where you want to represent something. Good? And then there are symbols. In symbols, the meaning depends on arbitrary conventions, very often cultural, and there is no resemblance or direct causation to the things that they are pointing. In this talk, I will not talk about symbols. I will only talk about iconic images and indexical images. But there is another way of classifying images from a semiotic perspective, and this depends on the role, on the goal, on the meaning of the image in the context wherein it is used. And from this point of view, we can distinguish between denotative and connotative images. A denotative image is an image whose primary main meaning is exactly what the image shows. It answers the question, what do I see? And this is the case, for instance, of images in a passport. There is no interpretation there. An image in a passport is there just to show how the face of that person looks like. If you say a weather map, there's no interpretation there. What you see is the hurricane in that particular position, in that particular day, and this is the role of the image. But in many other cases, images have a connotative meaning. In this case, it's not as important exactly what they show, but the meaning that the image has and the context and the thoughts and the sentiment that the image evoke. So you see here, in this case, the dove, we are not interested in that particular dove. Very often a dove like this means purity, Holy Spirit in Christianity, or freedom, or peace, or so. Or maybe in this kind of paintings, in the Middle Age, it's not important exactly what is and the shape of what is represented, but this has very symbolic meaning. So these kind of images have a connotative role in the context where they are used. Good? Now, with these ideas in mind, let me go through the history of images from 40,000 years ago to now from this point of view. So now we have two axes. Here you have indexical images. Now you know what they are. Here you have iconic images. And on the vertical axis, we have images with a connotative value and images with a denotative value. And of course, the vertical axis is a little bit complicated because where you put the image depends a little bit on the context, but we'll try to do our best to place images there. Now, the history of images. Since 40,000 years ago, to now, I mean, to 2 centuries ago, I call this the painter's age. The only images that were possible at that time were paintings, drawings. There was nothing else around. And those images had, where would you put those? Of course, there's not a direct causation, so they are not indexical. They are icons. And their meaning very often is a connotative meaning. In some cases, like portraits, images tell you something about how that person looked like, but in these images, it's more important the message that the painter wanted to transmit, like in Napoleon here. Okay, you know about the face of Napoleon, but what matters is its pose, where it is shaped, the dresses and everything. So all these images go here. Iconic, connotative value. Of course, you can have icons that give a denotative meaning. So like in botanic pictures or this drawing of Leonardo, they are again icons, but have some a little bit more denotative value. Now, in the middle of the 19th centuries, the camera was invented, and then we entered the analog photocamera age. Now you have these kind of images, and now they are produced through a cause and effect direct relationship between the word, the light of the word, and what you have in the image. And this, by the way, is the first image ever taken. And those images are indexical images. So they go here. And we used to think that indexical images have a very strong denotative value because, wow, they are a direct effect of the world around us, so they have a very strong denotative value. Well, yes and no. I call this the indexicality illusion because the fact that an image is indexical does not necessarily mean that it is denotative. Why? Because first of all, you choose what image to take. I can take a picture here, and I can decide to frame this part, that part, this part. So there is always an interpretation of the photographer. In addition, very often these images are staged. This is a very famous image of the Americans winning the Iwo Jima battle, but that is staged. This image is indexical, yes, because this was taken, the light entered the camera, and this was exactly what there was in front of the camera, but it has a connotative value rather than a denotative value. And same in archive footage images, very often the image is there not to show that this person, this Moratti, has exactly that color of the eyes, that color of the ears. It's just there to remind to the viewers what you're talking about. The role of this image is exactly like a word. So you can have images that are indexical, but with connotative value. And then what about forgeries? Forgeries have always existed, even in the analog era. So you can have cases like this, where you replace the head of this person with the head of Lincoln, or in other cases where the opponents, political opponents, slightly disappeared from the images. So these images are connotative, because they not denote something real, and they are losing the indexical value, because the link to reality is slowly lost. And so I would put them around here. And then we enter the digital Photoshop age. And this lasted more or less 70 years. And then the number of images around us exploded. There were some of them before, but now with the digital world, the number of images increased. And then, by the way, this is the first digital images ever taken. These images are, in principle, indexical, because even if it is digital, what you see in the sensor is still a direct cause of the light entering the sensor, but their meaning goes from denotative, this could be denotative, this may be, this with the hands forming a heart, this is absolutely connotative. So we are filling the entire spectrum here with digital indexical images. And then, of course, forgeries now are more and more common. So this is the Photoshop age. And now creating forgeries, I mean, it's so easy that everybody could create forgeries around. We have some examples here. Some of them are famous. And so images started being, of course, less lexical because the link with reality is being lost. And as more, I mean, the more you manipulate the image, the more its meaning is connotative and is not good to denote, to prove something. And then AI. With AI, something interesting happens because this part was once only for painters or for drawers. Now with AI, we have a lot of images that are poorly iconic. There is no relationship with the real world. There is no cause and effect, causation effect here, but these are images. Where do they go? Where do they go? Where do they go? They go here. So where do they go? Here, let me go back a couple of slides. Okay, so they go here. It's interesting, because once the iconic part of this area was only for painters. Now everybody can draw new images here. And then, of course, AI can be used to create very realistic forgeries. So the amount of transformation you can do to real images, to indexical images increases. Then you can change zebras into horses, female into male, summer to winter, remove objects, replace this baby with a cat. And so what happens? You are filling this part. You lose indexicality and you have connotative value. Something that also happened is that with AI revolution and computational images, indexical images are disappearing. You are moving here. Because what happens in your camera when you take a picture is less and less directly related to the light entering the sensors. So somehow the indexical part of the plane is emptied. Good? Now, with these ideas in mind, what does it mean that an image is authentic? What does it mean that I can believe an image? Now maybe we are in a better position to answer these questions. So I think that simply asking, is an image authentic, is an ill-posed question. And also asking, has this image been modified with respect to what? With respect to the original. What is the original? With respect to reality? With respect to the initial raw image? So this question was ill-posed, and now we should dig a little bit more into this. So where do our problems with images come from nowadays? First of all, I try to highlight 3 or 4 problems. And the first one is the indexicality illusion. Somehow, we think that indexical images have a high denotative value. This is simply not true. This image has no denotative value. It's like a novel. It's like an essay. I'm trying to tell you something through an image. These images, you look at this image, it seems to be in the middle of a battlefield, but then there were so many photographers waiting for the soldiers at the airport that this again a staged image. So this is a message that the photographer wants to give to you. So indexical does not mean denotative value. In addition, in our minds, for some reasons, when we see something that resembles a photograph, we think that photo-like appearance means indexicality. And then indexicality means denotative value. Again, this is not true, and this is not true. This is where most of the problems we have come from. Then, judging indexicality and the denotative level of value of an image is visually difficult. And for us, it's difficult to understand if this is a real person or something generated by diffusion models. if this person here was removed. If you look at the image on the right, how can you know that there was another person there? Judging this is difficult. So this is another source of problems that we have these days. Finally, the fact that indexical images are dying out is a problem. I mean, I sometimes think that the pictures taken by my phone are too beautiful. I took this picture at a conference in Rhode Island a couple of years ago. I mean, I was in front of that. It was not so beautiful. Not at all, no way. So I complained that my phone takes too beautiful images. So the computational images inside the camera tend to align the images they produce to our canon of beauty. And this means that indexicality is lost somehow. So, with these ideas in mind, maybe we could refocus our research. I see many papers. I've written many papers saying authenticity, well, I mean, should be a little bit more precise to understand what we want to do. Good? So, first of all, if those are the problems, which should be the solution? First of all, we should combat the indexicality illusion. And this is something that cannot be done by technology only. So I will rephrase something that usually cryptographers say. In cybersecurity, they say that if you think that technology can solve your problems, you do not know the problems and you do not know technology. Same here. If you think that technology can solve these problems, you don't know the problems, you don't know the technology. So here, we need the human side of the problem. So we need education, we need to enforce ethics in media professionals, photojournalists, because those people sometimes use those illusions to let you believe something that is connotative, but it's assumed to be denotative somehow. And then we need to improve the visual literacy of everybody, the wide public. People should be more and more able to understand that what they see has a meaning, and this could be true or could be not, and so on and so forth. And then, coming to our world, one thing that we should do we should be able to put images on the horizontal axis. So measure the indexicality of the images we have. And there are passive and active methods. In passive methods, first of all, we have seen many papers around. You want to detect raw camera images, not the images that are too beautiful, those that are in the sensors, and fully Gen AI images. They are at the extreme of the bar. But then we want to understand if there are some processing that at least preserve the content, and those are a little bit indexical, or those that change, remove, insert objects, they are even less indexical. And then there is the wide range of all possible AI manipulations that goes through simple things like compression, lossless compression, mild lossless compression that may be on this side, or things that change the winter into summer, the zebras into horses, it is on the other side. So whenever you say that something has been generated by AI, you should say what it means. Is this a real image that was later on modified, and to do what? And you have to do this in the wild. If you see a paper, all our papers, you get 95 or at least 97, 98% accuracy. But then putting this in the real world, of course, doesn't work much. So making this work in real life is not always at all. Even more, of course, these are, okay, no, the other thing is that we can use active methods. Active methods, I mean, very often we think about watermarking, which is nice. I love watermarking. I've been working on it a lot. But in some cases, you can do simpler things, digital signatures. In some applications, like X-rays, video surveillance, the easiest thing is to capture the images in the sensors, put a digital signature on it, and then you cannot change even one single bit without compromising the indexicality of the image. This is simply obvious. I mean, this is what you should do in some cases. Otherwise, you can use watermarking to watermark AI images. This is what the AI Act in Europe and other similar laws around the world tell us to do. In that cases, you can watermark images, and you can do this in several ways. This is the Gen AI image, so you can generate the image and then watermark it. This is like classical watermarking. Or you can embed the watermark in the latent space, which is something like watermarking in a transform domain, or even better, more difficult, you could train your Gen AI system in such a way that everything that is produced by the model is watermarked. Not post-hoc, not during, but this model produces only watermarked images. By the way, in this area, I think that this is an interesting initiative taken by the France press in the C2PA. C2PA is Content to Protection Alliance. They propose to do the following, which is interesting. So you have something, there is the journalist, you take an image, as soon as the image is taken, the raw data is cryptographically signed and put in a repository. Now we know that this is the indexical copy of this image. Perfect indexicality. But now, since you're a journalist, you need to post-process it to make this suitable for your journal or whatever you want. So you do post-processing, post-production, and then you put a watermark here. And the watermark links you to the indexical image. Then you have two copies. One indexical image and one with less indexicality, but maybe more connotative, more suitable to go in journals and news and so on and so forth. Then the image goes through its life cycle. At any time in the life of the image, you can extract the watermark and point to the indexical image. So now you have two images. One on the right upper part of the diagram and another somewhere else, but they are linked. That's interesting. Then what about the difficult part? The difficult part is to position images on the vertical axis. Measure the denotative value of an image. This is difficult. It's very hard. It's context dependent. It depends on culture and many other things. So at least you need two steps here. One step is understand the meaning of the image in the context where it is used. What's the role of the image there? And to do this, you need cognitive science, semiotic analysis, multimedia analysis, because you have a text and an image very often. You need affective computing, understand the emotion that the image gives to the user, to the viewers. This is the first step. Once you know this, you can see if the image has the value to do what it's supposed to do. So the image, maybe it has an implicit denotative value, but then the image is not indexical. Then this denotative value is not backed by reality. Or maybe the image is perfectly indexical, no change, but it was shot at a different time, in a different position. So you need to ask questions like, when was the image taken? Where was this image taken? Is the image coherent with the caption and the text that surrounds it? What is the effect of a manipulation? Does the manipulation change the meaning of the image in the context where it's used? So I will finish with an example to show what I mean here and to see how this can be insightful but also difficult. So this is something I invented. So this is an invented news. It says that historical Greek ruins attract tourists in record numbers. And then the text says that archaeologists in Greece have reported that a very big rise in tourism in Delphi because more people is visiting the site. So you see, what's the role of this image in this context? Well, it doesn't prove much. It's there only to put into the mind of the viewers that you're talking about Greece, indeed Delphi, according to what is written inside, and that there is some tourists. The text says there is a lot of tourists, but this doesn't prove nothing. It only proves that there are some tourists. Then, so the role is mostly evocative, a little bit denotative, but not much. Then you analyze the image, and this is not Delphi. The image is perfect, no change, but simply is not Delphi. So the denotative value is lost completely. It didn't have much, though. So is this image manipulative? Is this aiming at manipulating the public opinion? Well, just a little bit. Because the role of the image is not to prove anything. It's only there to raise something. And then the titles say Greek, so this is Greece, so it's not too bad. Now take another example. Same news. You see again a nice picture of Delphi. This time is Delphi. The column is in Delphi. There are tourists there. Again, the role is evocative because, I mean, you're not proving much here. The picture is beautiful. Maybe you don't see much here, but the picture is very beautiful. So very nice columns, a very nice atmosphere. And then some tourists. So the role is evocative and a little bit denotative. You see some tourists. Then you realize this is fully AI. This was generated by ChatGPT. So absolutely no denotative value. And manipulation, well, just a little bit. Maybe the atmosphere is too beautiful. It emphasizes the beauty and what you think that should be there. But see this now. Same as before, but now you see crowds of tourists there. And then the text is the same. Now, the role of this image is not only evocative, it's very denotative, because you want to show with this image that indeed the crowd in Delphi is huge. Can you believe all these people there? So this want to prove something. Want to say, look, the number of tourists in Delphi is increasing, and look here. One particular day, there were hundreds and hundreds of tourists there. Now, you analyze the image. This is AI manipulated. It's a real image in Delphi, but I asked ChatGPT to add the tourists for me. So, again, it was assuming a denotative value, proving somehow that there were tourists there, but in fact, this value is not there at all. And this is manipulation, because you let the user think. The user sees, wow, photograph image, indexical. Not true, it's AI. Indexical, denotative, not true again. So you are really manipulating the viewer subtly. So you see, this is what it means authentic. And then you have an extreme case. Now I change the paper, and it says, ancient ruins crumble as ominous clouds gather over Delphi. So I want to create from scratch some news saying that everything in Delphi is falling down. And I took an image in Delphi, I put clouds there, and I asked the system to create some scratches, some cracks into the columns. So what's the role of this image? It has two roles, communicative and denotative. Why communicative? Because the clouds resemble what is written in the title. So this is a way for the photographer, this is not a photographer, to communicate to the user what you want to say without using words, using vision. And this is fake, first. Secondly, it's denotative because you put cracks to show that indeed, prove that indeed the columns in Delphi are in a very bad shape. But it's not true. Then you know the role, you analyze the image, you see that the image was manipulated. This is an original image with manipulation. You perhaps can understand that the clouds were added, and you understand that there is a clear intent in the manipulator. And then you see that there were cracks added, and again, this is a clear manipulative intent. So, you see, all of these images are in a sense not authentic. This is misplaced, this is full AI, this is manipulated. But the answer to, is this image authentic, change a lot. This is what we should do, I think. It's difficult, but this is what we should do. So, take home. I think we are at a new turning point in the history of images. Things are changing again after, and even more rapidly, because, the painter's age lasted 40,000 years. Then the photographic age lasted 2 centuries. The Photoshop age lasted 50 years, and now who knows what happens in the future. So everything is moving more and more rapidly, but I think we are at a new turning point. If you look at the history of images, you see that there was everything iconic at the beginning, then everything moved to the indexical part, and then we are again moving to the iconic part. That's the idea. Given this, we should stop thinking of images as we used to do 100 years ago, 50 years ago. Things are changing. We should learn what images are there for. And rethink the role of images in this new age. And this is up to us, develop technical and non-technical countermeasures to avoid that images are used for bad purposes. As everything in technology, you can use technology for the good and for the bad, and we need to take countermeasures to avoid that these new technologies are used for the bad. But we need to understand the role of images and understand what we want to do. And this is a multidisciplinary research because it involves the human side, cognitive science, semiotics, visual psychology, technology, of course, and many other things all together that, creates a lot of interest for exciting research. Also, we should try to preserve the indexical value of images, because if we don't do much, indexical images will not exist anymore, because cameras will simply do what they want. You know the thing that there was a complaint with a Samsung phone, you take a picture of the moon, it's difficult to take good pictures of the moon. 2 days ago in Segesta, I tried to take a picture of the moon there. It was too bad. Even my phone was not able to make it good, because what I saw in front of me was so much better. But in some cases, some phones go in the archive, take an archival picture of the moon and put in the sky. The moon is the moon, it doesn't change. So why should I take the moon as it is now? The moon is always the same. So we're not taking a fake picture of the moon and put it there. It depends on what we want to do with the image. But we should do something to preserve the indexical value of images, maybe with digital signatures, watermarking, whatever, but this is one good goal of research. And first of all, we live a nice period for research, because doing research in this area is very exciting. There's a lot of room for new ideas to come, new solutions, working with other fields that, there are a lot of things to learn from other areas. We should, I think, avoid to do incremental work, trying to improve 1% more accuracy in distinguishing images generated by AI and real images, and we don't even know what real images is. And, but it's fun, I think. So, having said this, thank you for listening to me, and, I'm here for questions if you want.
Thank you for the very interesting talk. As you said, it's very multidisciplinary, this area. Especially found very interesting this space of the indexicality direction and the connotation versus denotation direction. So I was wondering, are there any analytic methods to quantify whether an image analyzed or created, is how much connotative value has, how much denotative value has? Can we quantify this?
No, this is what we should do. So rather than saying I mean, very often we see papers now saying, is the image, I mean, I write papers like that. I'm not blaming anybody. So the idea is that you say, is this image authentic? Is this image real? What does it mean? And you have images generated by diffusion models and the image taken by a camera, maybe a camera of 10 or 20 years ago. So now in my phone or in the new generation phone, there will be AI inside. And that will be created by AI. So what does it mean to say this is AI or not AI? Everything will be AI. So placing things on the indexical iconic axis is something that can be done, but quantifying this is not obvious. Maybe you can use some, I don't know, some measures like something like information theoretic measures to see how much is retained from the indexical axis. I can see something there. For the vertical axis, everything is to be invented because I have not seen many works there, and everything depends on the context. You've seen the same manipulation can be very bad in certain cases or can be innocuous in other cases. So on the vertical axis, I think everything is to be invented, and coming out with a measure, I don't know, that could be difficult. Maybe it's better to have something like yes or no, or it has, I mean, does the image have enough value to be trusted in the context where it is used? Maybe yes or no, or maybe yes, no, perhaps is better. Coming out with a quantitative vertical axis, I don't know. Horizontally, I think we can do something.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have a philosophical question. Sorry.
Yeah.
But I mean, not thinking about research, but thinking about practical life. How can you enforce some measure to assess indexicality of images? I think it's impossible. I mean, the example you made about Delphi, it's very clear. If I read the newspaper, how can I say that they think, unless I'm a very well good knowledge, I have a very good knowledge of, I mean, I was in Delphi, so I could tell that the first one was not, but the other three images. I mean, for a normal person reading the newspaper, it's impossible to make a difference. So for research, you can, but in practical life, we serve as engineers, then the problem is different.
So the idea is exactly this. Position images in that plane visually is almost impossible. So for the indexical part, there we can do something. First of all, we can develop tools that tells you if the image has undergone something from the raw image or on. And those tools could be available on the internet, or maybe it could be that WhatsApp, when it shows you an image, it can tell you this image was modified, this image is full AI, this image is not. And then users should be able to understand what this means for the horizontal. I mean, the horizontal is not so terrible. The vertical is very difficult. But there we need to, we need to, first of all, teach viewers to know what they're doing. I mean, the human part is important. If I see an image, what's the role of the image there? I mean, subtle things. It is like every misinformation. When I read some text, what do I do there? Do I believe everything? I mean, it's not just because I have an image, I have to believe it. So understanding this. And then having tools. So there could be, I mean, in our browsers, there could be some buttons saying, I don't know, if it is Delphi or not, there could be an inverse search. So look for the web to see if this is Delphi or not. And then with AI, I can take an image and ask ChatGPT or whatever, is this Delphi or not? Why not? So there are some technical solutions. How to implement them in practice? If we want to implement them in practice, this is very complicated. But there could be tools. There could be a button somewhere. I click the button, and then this tells me if this place is where it should be, or the timing. I don't know. Doing search on the internet, why not? This is doable. Not easy, of course.
If I can make my comment is like the Pandora vase. Once it's open, it's very difficult to go back to reality.
But I mean, what? I mean, we live in this world, so what can we do? We'll do our best. I mean, our world is complicated, and you have to live with it as much as possible. But at least understanding what the problems are is already a good step in the right direction. I mean, I was thinking about what authenticity means for some years. Then I discovered all of a sudden that already in the 50s or 60s of the previous centuries, semiotic experts introduced those ideas that was perfect to explain what I had in mind. That was already incredible to me. I mean, that indexicality, non-indexicality, denotative value, and so on and so forth. And they have a list of possible uses of images in a text. And so you could have a taxonomy of possible uses of images in a text, and then for every of these, you can see which question you want to answer to understand if there is manipulation or not. Then how to pass this to the public is a little bit more difficult.
Thank you for the very interesting talk. I was wondering if you ever wandered into different modalities. So for example, you said that for the photo, it looks too good. Most probably your phone tweaked the contrast because we are really sensitive to that. For audio, we have the same problem, which is called the loudness war, where we basically compress the audio in commercial radios to have something which is more punchy. For taste, it's the same. We put more sugar. It's a win approach for everyone. So I was wondering whether your plane would make sense for other modalities.
Okay, for taste, I really don't know. But for, okay, videos, did not exist in the cave age, so I don't know. There were no painters for videos. So videos started on the indexical part, for sure. But then you have cinema. So cinema and movies, they are indexical, but they have no denotative value. That's it, yes. For video, I think it makes sense. For audio, maybe the history even there is different, because audio, you cannot actually use, until the recorders was invented, you could not use audio to prove anything. But nowadays, I think the problems are very similar. So I think changing something, the history is different, of course. But nowadays, I think that plane works for both, yes. Suppose you have an audio, I'm saying something, and it's difficult to listen, to understand. I could change a little bit, could enhance the audio so that you listen this better, and then it's less indexical. But the denotative value maybe remain the same. But if I start speeding it up or changing the voice and everything, then everything changes. So yes, I think we can. Not for taste. Taste really, I don't know. But for movies and yes, and audio, I think we can, yes. Maybe music is different. Music is completely different. When I say audio, I think speech. Music has a different role. There is only for, nothing will use music to pretend that something happened. So, music is a bit different. But yes, I think we can do. Change a little bit, but I think we can.
Unless somebody wants.
I have a couple of comments. Do you think this might revive analog photography? So the way we've given it up, before year 2000, Kodak disappearing?
No, I don't think. I think, if I want to preserve indexicality, I put a signature, a digital signature.
That's sufficient.
Yes, you cannot change even one single bit there. If you want to do it, if you want to preserve indexicality, you see the picture as measuring the light intensity. So if you have an X-ray, X-ray is perfect. I'm measuring a physical property, then I store the bits. And of course, there is an instrument measure problem, so there may be some statistical leveraging to remove noise, but I mean, this is minor. And then have the raw data, digital signature on raw data, and then you don't change anything.
But it has to be enforced, right?
Well, I mean, you also have to enforce analog images. How you can convince everybody to go back to the analog images? This is even more difficult, I think.
Because, I mean, once you have the raw data can be signed again, eventually manipulated and signed again, if I can access the raw data in some form.
Well, I mean, of course, you need a framework there. But then it happens who signed it. It's a matter of trust, again. But even before, I mean, it's not that with the analog pictures, the situation is very different. There is plenty of examples where the way you take the picture, I mean, you can have many things to show. You take this side rather than that side. What you decide to frame, this is already a choice. I mean, if you want to have only the notative value, the only thing I see is to place a video camera there, always framing the same scene, no degrees of freedom. You take everything, and then you sign it. That's it. Because even a photojournalist that takes a picture, there are so many things happen in front of me. Which one do I prefer to take? Depending on the message I want to convey.
So the second comment was related to the communication intent. So there's been some interest in, the semantics of communication. There's a lot of interest in the information theoretic society, whereas the intent, I mean, delivering something so that the other person is going to react in a certain way, that's something that's still at its infancy. I mean, you open us.
Usually what is called affective computing, or less. There is something, but I agree with you, this is a very early stage. I mean, but there is a lot of people studying this. Maybe in our area we're not very well aware of it, but people doing advertisements, they know very well how to do it. People in the movies, they know very well how to give you a certain feeling. They are masters of doing this. And even in semiotics, they know very well the role of an image in a text, and so on and so forth. So there are a lot of studies in this world, and we should bring this in our world. It's difficult, but I think with AI is much more at hand than before. Now I can ask ChatGPT and tell him, or her, I don't know, what's the role of this picture in this text? And ChatGPT will answer. Maybe wrongly, but I mean, now with AI we can do things that once were really impossible to do. But we are at a very early stage, I agree with you.
Anybody else wants to ask a question to Mauro? If not, thank you very much again from everybody.